My name is Charlene Nadlin. I am the founder of Amintro, and I am thrilled to see so many faces joining us this afternoon. I am thrilled to be sharing wonderful information and great advice from Amanda Richards, who's joining us from Chartwell Retirement Residences. And for those of you that are not familiar with Amintro, we are a social platform and information hub for seniors and those who care about them that is built on fostering friendship and eradicating social isolation and loneliness through friends, knowledge, and shared experiences. And so it is my pleasure to be bringing this webinar to you this afternoon. What I'd like to do first is go over the agenda. Pretty simple. I'll be throwing it to Amanda momentarily, and we ask that if you have any questions, by all means, put them in the chat. And at the end of the discussion, we will set aside 10 minutes for Q&As to answer any of the questions that you may have. And so without further ado, it is my honor to introduce Amanda Richards.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Thank you everyone for joining us today. So as Charlene mentioned, my name is Amanda. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development and Community Integration at Chartwell Retirement Residences. I've been with Chartwell now for over 10 years and in the retirement living industry for over 17, which seems like a very long time. Throughout the last decade and a half, the senior living industry in Canada has really evolved and grown at a rapid pace. And I've had the fortunate opportunity of working not only with Chartwell, but with a number of leading providers in operations and sales management. And as such, I've witnessed the progression of senior care from the inside. So all this to say that my experience is multifaceted, and I am not planning to spend the next 30 or 40 minutes speaking about retirement living exclusively at Chartwell, but more so from a broader perspective. And in addition to sort of my my senior living experience, I've got a degree in anthropology that I clearly use every day. I also have a postgrad in business management and my designation as a certified professional consultant on aging and as an elder planning counselor. So I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you today about retirement living affordability, and very thankful to our amazing partner, Amintro. Switch my slides. You'll hear my mouse clicking a little bit here. I apologize for that in advance. So before we get started, I just want to share a little bit about Chartwell Retirement Residences as an organization. So we actually own and operate more than 200 retirement living and long-term care homes in Canada across 4 key provinces. So we're in Ontario, BC, Alberta, and Quebec. This makes us the largest senior living provider in the country, and we're very proud to be a Canadian company. Chartwell is traded on the TSX, and we are governed by a board of 7 independent directors. We're affiliated with a number of provincial organizations and associations across the country. And what this means is that for our residents, we are accountable for the highest level of safety, quality, and held to the highest standards in the industry. So our agenda today. In today's webinar, we're going to talk about some of the things pertaining to retirement living affordability. We're going to spend some time reviewing the available senior living options in Canada and their associated costs. We're also going to examine some of the financial stresses that are faced by the sandwich generation and how they might impact families. We're going to explore retirement living affordability, and we're going to walk through some of the common considerations for seniors and their families. So as we go through all of the material and questions sort of pop into your head, I encourage you to submit them using the chat function so that you don't forget them. And then at the end of the webinar, as Charlene mentioned, I'll take about 10 minutes or so, or as much time as we need, to answer any questions that you might have. So let's start with some thought-provoking statistics. By 2031, approximately 25% of Canada's population will be over the age of 65. We already have over 6 million seniors living in Canada, and this is now a bigger portion of the population than children under the age of 15. And there are more women who are over the age of 50 than under the age of 50. That's a pretty eye-opening statistic. In 2021, Canada's first baby boomers turned 75. And as Canadians continue to age in greater numbers, we know that more and more people are going to be looking for advice on how to plan their futures and what the lifestyle might look like moving forward. You may have questions such as, what does aging in my own home entail? What are the costs that are associated with this? How do I afford the lifestyle that I want in my golden years? Do I have to invest differently? When would be the best time financially to downsize? And how do I preserve my children's inheritance? What if my health starts failing? And what options would I have? And how do I prepare for those scenarios financially? There's a huge misconception in Canada that healthcare is free, and that as we age, the associated costs with our changing needs are covered by our government programs, or at least partially, and or offset by private insurance or benefits. This, however, is not the case. We have a tendency as human beings to plan for retirement, right? We plan for traveling, we plan for spoiling grandchildren and participating in lifelong interests and hobbies. And we also have a tendency to plan for end-of-life care. We do things like prepay for funerals and we worry about estate planning. But what about that big gap of time that's sort of in between those two stages? How do you prepare financially for changing care and wellness needs as we age? Are you aware of the costs that are associated with choosing to remain at home or downsizing or moving to a community for socialization and wellness services before more acute care in a setting like long-term care is required? While many people have a basic understanding of the various options that are available to seniors, it's not really a topic that's heavily discussed or researched until there's an imminent need. And our goal today is to help you with your planning by providing some financial insights into some of those various care options that are available to you. Oops. So senior care in Canada, in fact, is not free. One of the most common scenarios that we hear about in retirement living from prospective residents and their families is that their plan was to remain in their own home for as long as possible, adding on and layering on care services as they need it, and then moving into a government-funded long-term care home only when absolutely necessary and likely only for end-of-life care or if their care needs could no longer be met in their own home. And I'm sure this is a pretty familiar scenario to many of you listening today. Another common thought is that because long-term care is sort of readily available for those who require that acute care setting, and that because it's funded by the government, it's free or really inexpensive. The application process for long-term care varies slightly by province, but overall it sort of follows the same basic principles. That to qualify for placement, a prospective resident has to undergo a medical assessment upon recommendation from their doctor, and then they're placed on a wait list that's prioritized by needs. So that is to say that residents requiring more immediate medical support will likely be offered accommodations before someone who requires more basic support. And this systematic management of the waitlist ensures that those who really can't be supported in their own home or those who are in hospital awaiting placement are generally able to move to long-term care sooner. The exact long-term care home that a resident wishes to move into may or may not be available when the time is right, and so it might not be the one they end up moving into. Each resident is able to select a couple of options for long-term care, and then they sort of have to move into whatever is offered to them first. The first available bed is the one that you move into, or you risk losing your place on the wait list, which depending on the province and the level of care that you require and the property that you've selected, these wait lists can be quite lengthy. There is a process if you sort of take what's available at the time and continue to be on the wait list for your preferred accommodations. But as you can appreciate with such a growing wait list, it's a little bit difficult and you might wait a long time for that move. Another important consideration is that many couples find themselves unable to live together when one person requires long-term care. So you think about someone you've been married for, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and all of a sudden you're living on your own for the very first time. Many provinces do offer a reunification program for long-term care, but with the waitlist continuing to grow for those that require the care, the chances of being able to move in together are starting to decrease. It's important also for you to fully understand the costs that are associated with long-term care in your province of residence. So it's not wise to bank on moving to a long-term care home at a specific time, as the waitlist and the criteria can change. And to qualify, a doctor has to make that formal recommendation for the services. All this to sort of say that there's no proactive way to plan for a move to long-term care. The second consideration is that while there is a subsidy program in place to ensure that every Canadian has access to long-term care services, most Canadians are required to co-pay for long-term care. The rates are fixed by the provincial governments, and again, they vary depending on the province, but generally there's an out-of-pocket cost of around $3,000 a month for long-term care. There's also the possibility that as someone's needs change or their care requirements increase, care services could be added at an additional cost per month. A couple of years ago, there was actually an article published in the National Post that sought to address the true cost of senior care. And as you can see on the chart, there's three main options that you can consider: living at home with support services, a retirement residence with supportive care services, and long-term care. No matter which option you select, there are costs associated with care. In fact, many people assume that living at home with services is the most cost-effective option, but as private care requirements escalate over time, it can actually surpass retirement living as the most expensive option. The other consideration that's not even listed here is that, if you're living at home, you have to maintain that schedule of caregivers, and that requires a lot of coordination, a task that generally falls to an adult child who's, maybe in some cases still working full-time. Long-term care facilities clearly offer the lowest cost, but it's important to bear in mind, as we just talked about, that long-term care placement is based on that health assessment, and it is reserved for seniors who require more acute nursing care. So those with minimal to moderate care needs may face long wait lists and limited choices for accommodations. Additionally, what's not factored into these equations on the screen here is the true cost of caregiving and the financial implications it has on the sandwich generation. So loosely defined, we refer to the sandwich generation as those who have an aging parent or parents, and they also have children or adult children living at home. I'm sure many of you who are joining us today sort of fall into this category, this bracket. In a commission study by FP Canada in 2017, it was revealed that some Canadians anticipate they may need to provide financial support to their parents, their aging parents, and that they expect this will actually have a major impact on their own personal finances. 14% of the people who were surveyed actually expected to provide some financial support in such a way that it would actually delay their own retirement. And 12% said that it would prevent them from paying off their debt. This is a huge source of potential stress and anxiety that may be layered on to an already really sort of stressful time of life. So last year we actually this year we worked with Kelly Keane, who is a very recognizable Canadian financial expert, and she put together a brief video for us on the true cost of caregiving. So I'm going to share that with you now. Oops.
Let me tell you about Monica. She's a business associate of mine, and she reached out to me last week. She's worried, anxious, and can't sleep most nights. And it's not just COVID exhaustion. She's barely coping with caring for her aging parents, but is also squished with the responsibility of raising her two teenage girls. She's missing hours at work and not sure how much longer she can cope. Monica's far from alone. Stats Canada reports that over half of caregivers felt worried or anxious because of their caregiving responsibilities, and about the same percentage felt tired during the last 12 months. Not only is Monica stressed, but she also joins 54% of caregivers who are women, with 30% of them facing a heavier burden, including taking more time off work than their male counterparts. And on average, putting in 20 more hours per week on caregiving tasks. Over 8 million Canadians provide care for chronically ill or disabled friends and loved ones, with approximately half caring for their parents or in-laws. And this compassionate support comes with a hefty price. Caring for aging parents costs Canadians an estimated $33 billion each year. That's lost time from work and out-of-pocket expenses. And that figure is only expected to increase. Speaking of out-of-pocket expenses, those are estimated to set Monica and other supporters back over $3,300 per year, costing the Canadian economy over $6 billion. And what about other expenses to support your parents if they choose to live at home? On average, a homeowner will spend $3,000 to $15,000 to remodel their homes for aging in place, with most people paying $9,500 to add a walk-in or roll-in shower to a bathroom, safety grab bars, and non-slip flooring, as well as a universal height toilet and sink. And then there's the consideration of home care costs. If Monica simply isn't able to help her parents by herself any longer. In Canada, home care costs can vary between $24 to $35 an hour, with the nursing care costing $60 plus per hour. Many home care companies set a minimum too of how many hours they're willing to come out for. If you have a parent who needs a lot of care at that $60 per hour price tag, you could be paying upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 a month for day support Monday to Friday, and that may not cover nights and weekends, but you still have to provide care. Like so many, Monica's parents assume that her caregiving is free, but as you can see, that couldn't be further from the truth. She loves her parents dearly and cherishes the time she's able to spend with them. But she wonders how much more valuable their moments together would be if she didn't have to worry about taking care of their home repairs, maintenance, bringing them groceries, and cooking most of their dinners. Not to mention driving them to and from their many medical appointments. What Monica and her parents need to know is that life doesn't have to be this hard. Most seniors are pleasantly surprised at the community and support that retirement residence offers them. Not only are many levels of care and support available around the clock, so are delicious and nutritious meals and a network of fellow residents available for socialization and recreation. Many of these factors help expand the lifespan of Monica's parents while increasing their joy and well-being, not to mention hers. So if you're a caregiver to aging parents and find yourself taking on the majority of their support because you and they think of your efforts as free or saving money, I urge you to remember that this isn't really the case. Out-of-pocket expenses, time at work, promotions turned down because you don't have the capacity to take on more. These are the true financial costs of caregiving, in addition to everything you're investing emotionally, mentally, and physically. For more information about the true cost of caregiving and the affordability of retirement living, visit my library, videos, and blogs on chartwell.com.
So one of the most common questions that we're asked by prospective residents and their families is how much does it actually cost to live in a retirement residence? And when we share the response, which is that depending on the location of the residence, just like the real estate market, it fluctuates, and Vancouver is going to be more expensive than Windsor. The type of suite that a resident selects, retirement living organizations offer a huge range of suite styles and types, from independent apartments or townhomes to 1 or 2 bedroom suites or studios. And, even the type of care and services that they require, which also varies significantly. And by location, it can range from independent living to assisted living or even memory care. The price can range anywhere from around $2,000 to $8,000 a month. So then the next phrase we often hear is, well, that's really, really expensive, and I don't think I could ever afford that. But once you actually break down the costs and compare them to the cost of living at home with services, and you take into consideration some of the available financial benefits that are available to seniors, it becomes more likely that people can consider it as a viable option. Before we look at the cost of retirement living in a lot more detail, let's spend a couple of minutes just sort of exploring the costs of staying at home. So I'm going to pull this up, our cost comparison questions here. Whoops. So when we think about cost comparison and the costs that are associated with someone who maybe requires some basic services, let's look at what would go into making their financial plan. So these are the questions that we typically ask on our cost comparison tool to sort of better understand each person's individual circumstances. So the first question we ask is, how much are they currently spending on housing per month? And this could be a mortgage payment in some cases, or rent, or condo fees if you're living in a condo. The next question is, do you pay property taxes? And if so, how much are you spending on property taxes annually or per month? How much do you spend on property insurance every month? How about things like cable, internet, and phone every month? These are very, very basic costs. And then once we sort of explore these, we dive a little bit deeper. So many seniors who are living in their own homes often rely on a third-party service provider for wearable technology, such as a pendant or a bracelet that they can activate in the event of an emergency, like a fall. So if they're using one of these services, what is the monthly cost and what does that include? Another thing that we hear is a lot of people who are living on their own do worry about security. And so if they are doing that, if they're worried about security, how much are they spending on an alarm system? Alarm systems are installed to combat this fear, but they do come with a monthly fee. So how much is that? How much are they currently spending on utilities? So gas, water, and electricity. And then what about home maintenance fees? So approximately how much are they spending on things like window cleaning, duct cleaning, carpet and furniture cleaning, as well as appliance repair or replacement costs and service calls for things like plumbing? How about driveway sealing? That's one that always sneaks up on me every month, or every year rather. How much do you spend monthly for snow removal or landscaping? So it could be things like annual flowers, the grass cutting and fertilizing, and making sure that you have the beautiful planter pots outside and all of those things, in addition to just worrying about shoveling the snow in the winter and raking the leaves in the fall. Well, that wasn't a good button to hit. How much do you currently spend on housekeeping services? What about something like food? This is one that's really hard to calculate because it's not just the groceries, but it's also the dining out and delivery services, meal preparation services, etc. There's a lot of really great meal prep services out there, but they do come with a cost. Approximately how much are you spending on transportation every month? So this could be a car payment or insurance, vehicle licensing and maintenance fees, or things like transportation services, shuttles, taxis, or public transportation. How much are you spending every month on social and fitness opportunities or recreation? So think about recreation center fees, gym memberships, fitness classes, or social clubs and memberships, as well as things like theater or concert tickets. And then finally, perhaps the most important cost is, on average, what are you spending on home healthcare services? So home healthcare services, as Kelly Keene mentioned in that video, can range anywhere from $20 to $60 per hour, depending on the requirements of the individual. And many of the home healthcare agencies Do you have a minimum number of hours that someone can come into a home for each day? This is often a cost that's sort of drastically underestimated by families when they're planning to remain in their own homes. So once you sort of take all of these into consideration, whoops, the costs associated with living at home, they add up to a substantial amount each month. And retirement living often includes all or most of these costs, and it also offers some additional benefits. For example, there are staff on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who really get to know the residents and their unique needs and preferences, and they're able to ensure that those enhanced infection prevention and control measures are adhered to. For senior couples, retirement living offers the most flexible option, as they're able to live together or apart if they so choose, in the same building or the same suite, even if they have different levels of care. And most importantly, there are opportunities for residents to be social and to participate in dining and leisure activities as frequently or as infrequently as they like. I think there's a bit of a misconception that once you move into a retirement residence, you're forced to participate in social activities, and that's simply not the case. They're available for those who would like, and if and when they want to participate. So understandably, some of you may still feel like retirement living is still financially out of reach. But to better assist you and your family to determine if it is actually a good option, a more detailed analysis of your affordability index can be completed. So we recommend sitting down with your financial advisor. At the end of the day, our financial experts are there for a reason. We can walk you through everything to do with retirement living, and your financial experts can walk you through everything to do with your personal finances. But recommend that you sit down with your financial advisor and look at your available sources of income that need to be taken into consideration. So earlier we reviewed the costs of living at home, and now we can explore the cost of retirement living and compare this to your income and your available revenue streams. So firstly, there are a number of government benefits to consider. You also need to evaluate your current retirement savings or your company pension, as well as any additional sources of income. And one of the most important elements to consider is the equity that many seniors have in real estate. What we tend to overlook is that if you're moving to a retirement residence, you're likely not also maintaining a home. And as we all know, the equity from the sale of a home can dramatically and drastically affect a person's financial portfolio, especially in today's lucrative real estate market. And this offers a new stream of revenue once the funds from the sale of that home are invested. Finally, there's the consideration of the value of other assets that you might be selling, such as vacation properties or vehicles or recreation items, such as boats or trailers, or even things like artwork. So once you understand the associated costs with choosing to remain at home and age in place, and you compare that to your new revenue stream, you might find that your affordability index is way higher than you initially assumed. And this is something that we see consistently in retirement living with people that we're talking to. So I also know that a lot of you probably have questions about the different levels of care and support that are offered in retirement living. So I'm hoping to sort of proactively answer some of those questions for you now. What I'm going to go through now is a brief explanation of the different levels of care and how each can suit the different needs of seniors. But we really do encourage seniors and their families not to get hung up on the classifications, because sometimes they can be used interchangeably from different organizations. So one organization might refer to something as assisted living, another one calls it assisted care, another one calls it supportive living. These are very, very sort of brief definitions of the levels of care that are available in retirement living in Canada. The best thing to do is to speak to a representative from the specific home that you're looking at to understand sort of what they call them. In any case, all of these levels of care are available across the country. So let's start with independent living. Independent living is for seniors who still lead an active lifestyle, but they'd rather not spend their time maintaining a home, and they would really thrive in a community where they can socialize with their peers, when they choose to do so. They can participate in activities and outings. And if they're interested, they can enjoy daily prepared meals. Seniors in independent living can often also enjoy conveniences like housekeeping and 24-hour security, and the peace of mind that comes from just knowing that if there's an emergency or a fall, something like that, there's always someone around, there's staff on hand. In many cases, independent living could be in a full apartment with a full kitchen and cooking facilities, or a townhome with a garage. It's very, very independent. The next level is independent supportive living. And this is best suited for active, independent seniors who could also benefit from some additional daily support. It can combine all of the benefits of an independent lifestyle in a retirement residence. So you get, housekeeping and laundry and leisure and social activities and 24-hour available security. You also get your daily meals, so your 3 daily meals, and the ability to take advantage of personal support services like medication administration or assistance with a daily routine. Independent supportive living is the most prevalent lifestyle option available in retirement residences, and accommodations can range from apartment style suites with kitchens to 1 or 2 bedroom suites, or even single suites or bachelor style suites. Assisted living is for individuals who enjoy all the same things as our independent and independent supportive living residents, but they tend to have more physical support requirements to carry out their daily tasks. So in assisted living, you can receive assistance with things like bathing or grooming, dressing, personal hygiene, and other activities of daily living. Additional services are provided by dedicated staff in the homes, and they vary depending on the level of care or support that's required by the resident. Assisted living communities generally have staff on site 24 hours a day to provide care. So you might see more nurses, more RNs, more PSWs on site. The next level is memory care support. So memory care is offered to seniors who are living with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. Caring staff are trained on how to support these individuals living with cognitive impairment. At Chartwell, we have memory care services that have dedicated or secure neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods have, their own dining rooms and activities and things that are provided to residents with cognitive impairment, all with added security and peace of mind. Though Chartwell offers memory care services in many of our residents, several of our communities in Ontario and now in Alberta, and we're starting in Quebec, also have dedicated memory living neighborhoods. This is a really unique program to Chartwell. It offers, secure outdoor spaces. We have family style dining, resources like a dementia counselor for families. And the focus of these special neighborhoods is on the social impact of dementia, and it offers residents living with Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's type dementia a really supportive environment with emphasis on the activities of daily living. So this, is really, really supportive, and in the future, more of our residences will offer memory living neighborhoods. We actually have a couple that are currently under construction. Retirement living, as you can see, has a huge range of care services and support. One of the questions we hear most often, though, is, what level of care can retirement homes go up to? What's the ceiling? And the answer is that as long as a resident's needs can be safely supported, retirement residences can actually go all the way through to end-of-life care. Should a resident's sort of care needs increase or exceed what can be safely provided in a retirement residence, a move to long-term care or hospital might be required, just as it would be if you were living in your own home. So over here, I have talked about a lot of things, and I've shared a lot of information with you in a very short period of time. I hope that there's some points for consideration there for you. If you're curious about retirement living and you'd like to understand the care options and available at Chartwell, you can reach out to us. There's a number of ways that you can do that. I'll preface this though with a reminder that we're here to help. So even if you're not interested in Chartwell specifically, We are happy to provide general information about retirement living in Canada and answer your questions and act as that conduit to make introductions to whatever service you're looking for. The best advice that I can give you, though, is that sooner is better than later. Take the time to investigate your options and visit some residences. And also be aware that waitlists and availability can exist in residences. And so it's constantly changing. The toughest time to make a decision is when you're sort of under the gun, you're faced with a health crisis and you have to do something quickly. So I encourage you to take the time to plan ahead, explore your options, ask lots of questions, go on lots of visits, and then communicate with your family and let them know what your preferences are. I'd also like to take this opportunity to invite you to explore retirement living by visiting any one of our Chartwell properties across the country for our national open house. We are very excited to be bringing this back after 2 years of not being able to do this. Our national open house is going to take place from 1 to 6 p.m. on April 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. You can visit any one of our residences during these dates. If you would like to, you can call ahead and book a specific time for a tour, but you don't have to. Our doors are open, no appointment necessary, and you can just come in and dip your toe in the water and see if retirement living is appealing to you in a very sort of non-threatening, no pressure kind of way. So I will take the time now to ask if anybody has any questions before we wrap up. If there's anything you'd like to know about anything we covered today.
Amanda,
Yes.
so the open house, I shared the link. It's going to be national, April 7 to 10. And can you tell us what that would be like? Like, so we sign up or we walk in to do an open house in a location close to us or where a loved one lives. What's the expect? Like, how does it work when we show up there?
Sure. So you can pop in anytime and see us, and one of our staff members will be on hand, our retirement living consultant or the general manager, or one of our residence managers will be available to meet with you, to answer any questions you have about retirement living, and to show you around the property. You'll likely see lots of activities and things that our residents are enjoying. You'll have a chance to see the suites. You'll have a chance to meet with the staff members and the residents. And really, it's an opportunity to ask and to experience what life in a residence is like.
Okay. What tends to be sort of like the top 1 or 2 so aha moments or reactions that you find when people are doing tours or learning what we've learned today about the feasibility and the benefits of retirement living?
2 things. So the first would be for the residents who make the decision to move in with us. The number one thing we hear is, man, I wish I did this years ago. I didn't realize that it would be, such a feasible option for me, and I love it. I'm enjoying my time. I wish I'd done this a long time ago. I feel better now that I've made that decision to move. The other is that for people who perhaps haven't stepped into a retirement residence, people tend to have sort of 2 stereotypical thoughts as to what retirement living is. One is like those 1970s green walled nursing homes that are very institutional and clinical settings. Or the other extreme is that we think they're very posh, formal, 5-star hotel settings, which, I mean, some of them look like that. But when you walk through the door, people are genuinely shocked at what they see. It is a very modern, beautiful setting with lots of common spaces and opportunities for residents to have a good time. And it's not a clinical or institutional looking setting. It looks like a giant home, very, very modernly furnished and, kind of like a cruise ship or hotel experience with the warmth of a family home is what I would say.
Wonderful. I had another question, but I'm monopolizing. If anyone else has any questions, please pipe up.
So hard. There's a lot of information in a short period of time to absorb. And we know that a lot of people, sort of have questions in the background and might not want to ask them in a forum like this too. So if you do, like I said, I recommend that you reach out to chartwell.com. You can ask any one of our agents or talk to our staff anytime.
We have a question. I'll read it to you. Can you please describe the type of rooms or housing for the memory living communities?
Oh, fantastic question. So memory living tends to offer sort of like a large studio style or a 1-bedroom style suite. All of the suites have special sort of prompters in there to help our residents have a good day every day. So things like signage within the suite to identify where closets and toilets and things like that are. Lots of color contrast in the suite to make it easily accessible. And the memory living neighborhoods themselves are set up to help people sort of live a typical day, if you will. So when you walk into a memory living neighborhood, I was shocked the first time I did. No, this is probably the best way I can describe it. I walked into a memory living neighborhood and there was a resident and one of our team members both sitting in the living room with their feet up on the coffee table watching the Blue Jays game together, eating ice cream. And it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And at first I thought, like, did he not know that someone from head office was coming in today to take a look? And then I realized very quickly, this is what life in memory living is like. Because on an afternoon at 3 o'clock when the Jays game is on in your own home, you sit down with your feet on the coffee table and grab an ice cream cone and watch the game with your friend. And that's what was happening. That's life in memory living at Chartwell. We have a full kitchen where residents do baking and then they eat what they've baked for dessert when they sit down at the table with our team members, where we have family style dining. It's not an institutional setting. It's all about sort of going about the activities of daily life in an environment that supports that safely and with lots of stimulation. If you have a parent or a loved one who does require some memory living support with Alzheimer's or Alzheimer's type dementia, I can't say enough wonderful things about memory living at Chartwell. It is an exceptional program and you really do have to experience it.
I will say that sings to me because I have three very dear friends, and we've spoken about this before, Amanda, very, very dear friends of mine, and they're all going through it right now, each of them with their dads. And it's heartbreaking, but the peace of mind that they all have, finding those homes, really like home for their dads. Like they just love the team members and they build relationships with them, my friends, as well as their fathers, right? Like there's a bond in there that just alleviates a lot of the stress and anxiety, and honestly could bring tears to your eyes when you hear about how well their dads are doing, really. So yeah, very, very heartwarming. We have another question. How is it determined which level of care you would be at?
Excellent question. So part of the move-in process for any retirement residence is actually a health and wellness review, which is a nice way to say an assessment. So you would meet with the nurse at the property who would go through a series of questions and evaluations with the potential resident or prospective resident and or their family, depending on their care requirements. And we also have a medical form that needs to be filled out by the family doctor. So the sort of the background information, as well as the meeting with our nurse to determine the care needs, is what will determine the level of support that each resident requires.
Thank you. That's a good question. Really good questions, actually. Are there any other questions for Amanda while we've got her this afternoon? By all means, raise your hand or put it in the chat, or as she said earlier, there's plenty of ways of reaching out directly to Chartwell. And I will say, and second what Amanda shared earlier, which is regardless of whether Chartwell is of interest or not, they really pride themselves in supporting our communities and our senior loved ones and want the best for them. And so they are just a great source for information that does not have to pertain pertain to Chartwell whatsoever. They're very generous with their information and more than happy to help and provide the best recommendations or advice or feedback to ensure that you get the right information, which I think is fantastic and takes a lot of the stress and sort of anxiety and maybe intimidation out of, information gathering.
Absolutely. We're here for our prospective residents and, all seniors. So ask us anything. We're happy to help.
Wonderful. Well, let's see what we're doing for time. It's 12:50. Unless there's any more questions, I think that we could maybe wrap this up slightly early, if that's okay with everybody. I wanted to honestly thank everyone who joined us today to our webinar, Exploring Retirement Affordability with the wonderful Amanda Richards. Thank you, Amanda. This was really insightful. I constantly am learning so much, with each webinar and session that we have. We hope that you found the information valuable and that if you have, you've had your questions answered. And again, if anything comes up after the fact, and that usually happens with me, I'll sit and have a coffee and a bite to eat and I'm like, oh, I wish I'd asked that. Please feel free to reach out to Chartwell, and of course keep in mind that they've got a nationwide open house happening in early April. We will be having more webinars through Amintro, and to stay informed, feel free to visit amintro.com and check out our events page to be informed and to RSVP. And thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.